Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling something pretty central to our online lives.
Hmm.
We're diving into a new report. It's from the NATO Strategic Communications Center of Excellence.
Right, Stratcom COE.
And they're looking at the EU's Digital Services Act, the DSA, asking if it's actually cutting down on harmful content.
And they picked a big target, Facebook, a platform, well, most of us use it.
Exactly. So, our mission here for you listening is to figure out if this big law, the DSA, is actually working.
Yeah, is it reducing the harmful stuff on a huge platform like Facebook? This report gives us a before and after picture.
Looking at data from before the DSA fully kicked in, which was February 2024, and comparing it to afterwards.
Think of it as a checkup, really. How's the health of that online space post-DSA?
And like you said, this isn't just guesswork. We're basing this on the impact of the Digital Services Act, a Facebook case study.
Published just now, May 2025. Tetiana Hajcik, Marat Kuznetsov, and the team at NATO Stratcom COE did the legwork.
Serious research behind this.
And the way they did it is key. They analyzed Facebook accounts in Poland and Lithuania.
Comparing 2023 to 2024 data.
Right. And they used this multi-stage AI process. So different AI layers flagging potential harmful content.
But not just AI, right?
No, and that's important. Independent human fact checkers then review the AI's findings to, verify.
Adds that layer of accuracy. Makes sense. Okay, so let's get into it. What did this deep dive actually find about harmful content trends?
Well, here's the headline finding, and it's maybe not what you'd expect.
Yeah.
Overall harmful content within the accounts they studied increased by 45% after the DSA came into effect.
Increased by nearly half. Wow. Okay. What kind of harmful content are we talking about?
That's the striking part. Hate speech. It was totally dominant. Over 90% of the harmful stuff in both years was hate speech.
90%.
And it didn't just stay high. It jumped. They saw a 49% increase in hate speech posts, specifically in 2024.
So the overall rise is basically a rise in hate speech.
Pretty much, yeah. It really shows where the biggest moderation challenge lies. Maybe the DSA hasn't quite figured out how to tackle hate speech effectively yet.
It does seem like a persistent issue, but you mentioned Poland and Lithuania. Was the picture the same in both countries?
Not at all. Big differences.
Mm.
In Poland, harmful posts went up significantly, 55% increase in 2024.
55%. That's even higher than the overall average.
It is. And digging into the Polish data, it gets even more specific.
How so?
Well, within Polish Facebook groups, the increase was massive. A 128% surge in harmful posts.
Whoa, 128%. Compared to what for individual accounts?
Individual Polish accounts only saw a 6% increase.
Okay, that's a huge difference. What does that suggest? Groups are harder to manage.
It certainly raises that question, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Are the moderation tools, the strategies, just not working as well in those group settings? Maybe the way conversations happen in groups makes them more vulnerable.
Yeah, I can see that. They can become echo chambers pretty quickly. So that was Poland. What about Lithuania? You said it was different.
Completely opposite trend, actually. Lithuanian accounts saw an 11% decrease in harmful posts in 2024.
A decrease. Okay, so why the difference? Any ideas from the report?
The report highlights the contrast. It
Mhm.
suggests that, a broad law like the DSA might land differently depending on the specific country, the language, maybe even the online culture,
Or platform focus, maybe?
potentially, or
Okay.
just different local issues driving the conversation.
Okay, so hate speech was the main driver, but were there shifts in other types of bad content?
Yeah, they saw some changes, things like posts related to public safety, illegal products, election integrity stuff. Those became more common in 2024.
More common.
Yeah.
And anything decrease.
Yes, they saw fewer threats against officials and less terrorist content. So some positive movement in certain areas.
But overshadowed by the hate speech surge.
Exactly. That big rise in hate speech is really driving the overall negative trend they found.
And did the topics within hate speech change? What were people being hateful about?
Yeah, they looked at that too. For the Polish content, there was a really noticeable rise in anti-Semitism and also anti-EU or anti-globalist type posts in 2024.
Specifically in Poland.
Specifically in the Polish data, yeah. That same rise wasn't seen in Lithuania. Different narratives gaining traction, it seems.
So what did change in Lithuania then, topic-wise?
In Lithuania, anti-Semitic posts actually went down, but they saw a growth in anti-LGBT sentiment instead.
Interesting. So the focus of the hate shifts depending on the context.
It really shows harmful content isn't just one thing, right? It
Yeah.
adapts to local social and political issues.
And the report mentioned anti-Semitism was the biggest topic overall across both countries.
Yeah, that's right. 41% of all the harmful content they identified was anti-Semitic.
41%. And was there a reason for that being so high?
The researchers directly link a lot of it to the Israel-Hamas war, which started in late 2023.
Oh,
It suggests these major real-world conflicts spill online very quickly and massively. And it makes you question if platforms are really ready to handle these kinds of conflict-related surges effectively.
right. So the DSA is in place, but harmful content is up, especially hate speech, driven partly by real-world events, particularly in Poland. What did the report say about Facebook's actual efforts to deal with this?
They looked at a couple of key things Facebook was doing. One was using independent fact-checkers,
Okay.
and the other was how successful they were at actually removing the harmful posts.
Let's start with fact-checkers. Did Facebook lean on them more after the DSA?
Yes, actually. That was a positive trend they noted.
Yeah.
The number of posts that got fact-checked went up by 45% in 2024
45% increase in fact-checking. Okay, that sounds good.
across both Poland and Lithuania. So it does suggest Facebook ramped up its work with these third-party groups, possibly, responding to the DSA's focus on tackling disinformation.
A sign they were taking it more seriously, perhaps, but
Yeah.
feel the but coming.
You got it. Because almost in the same breath, the report flags that Meta, Facebook's parent company, announced early this year, 2025, that they're actually ending that third-party program.
Ending it after increasing its use.
Yeah. Shifting to a community notes model, where users add context.
Like on X Twitter? Okay. What does the report say about that?
Well, raises obvious concerns, right? If that increased reliance on professional fact-checkers was just temporary, what happens now? How effective will the user-led model be at scale, especially for nuanced or complex, harmful content?
Definitely a big question mark there. Okay, so that's fact-checking. What about actually removing the harmful stuff? Taking it down?
And this is where the findings get quite worrying.
More worrying than the overall increase.
I'd say so, yeah, because it's about enforcement. The report found the rate of removal for harmful posts actually went down between 2023 and 2024.
Down? How much?
In 2023, about 12% of the harmful posts they tracked were eventually removed or made unavailable. In 2024, that dropped to only 4%.
12% down 4%, so less harmful content being taken down after the DSA.
That's what this data suggests, yes. And again, the
Yeah.
difference between the languages was huge.
Let me guess, worse for Lithuania.
Dramatically worse. For Lithuanian harmful posts, the removal rate basically collapsed. It went from 33.3% in 2023
Okay, a third removed? That's not bad.
down to just 0.8% in 2024.
0.8, less than 1% removal.
Less than 1%. Polish content removal also decreased from 11% to 4.5%, but that Lithuanian drop is just staggering.
Wow, what does that signal? Just not enough resources for smaller languages.
It strongly suggests that, doesn't it? That monitoring and enforcement might be heavily skewed towards larger language markets, leaving smaller ones much more exposed.
That seems like a massive gap. Okay, so bringing this all together, what are the main takeaways, the big conclusions from this NATO Stratcom COE study?
Well, the headline conclusion, based purely on this Facebook case study, is that the DSA doesn't seem to have automatically resulted in a safer online space, at least not yet, and not everywhere.
That 55% increase in harmful Polish content is the key evidence there, right?
Exactly. It suggests the intended safeguarding effect wasn't achieved in that context.
And the point about the groups being worse.
Yeah, that's a big one. It points to a potential, maybe significant struggle for platforms like Facebook to effectively police content within those group environments. They might need totally different approaches there.
Right. And the prevalence of anti-Semitism linked to the war?
It really underscores this need for platforms to get much better and faster at handling online threats tied to real-world conflicts. These things explode online.
And finally, that Lithuanian removal rate catastrophe.
It's a stark warning, isn't it? It highlights an urgent need for platforms to invest seriously in moderation for less spoken languages. You can't have balanced, fair content moderation if some languages are effectively ignored.
So, wrapping up our deep dive today, the DSA aimed high, wanting a safer internet. But this look at Facebook shows it's, well, complicated.
Very complicated. Harmful content, especially hate speech, actually increased in some areas. And the way content is removed seems inconsistent, potentially leaving smaller language users much less protected.
It really leaves you thinking, doesn't it? If a giant platform like Facebook shows these kinds of results after the DSA, what does that tell us about how effective this kind of law can really be on its own?
hmm And how much responsibility ultimately lies with the platforms themselves to proactively manage this stuff across all languages and in those tricky group settings.
Loads to mull over there. Thinking about that balance between free speech, platform duties, and just the sheer difficulty of content moderation today. And of course, that move away from professional fact checkers just adds another layer of uncertainty for the future. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.